So, should we bring in the closer? And
I think it'd be a good time for that.
All right.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 77 of the Free Baseball Podcast presented by the Athletes Hub. My name is Davis Bird. I'm joined by the mustachioed, magnificent man, Jake Crumpler, with his cup of whatever beverage he has.
Coffee. I'll drink coffee at midnight. Especially like when I'm working on weekends. I'll sometimes be like, screw it. Like, I'm just going to start working on a podcast at like 2 a.m. and then it's not done until like 5 or 6. I'll start drinking coffee at like 3 a.m.
Not a big coffee guy. Got to be honest.
How do you get your caffeine?
I still am addicted to caffeine, so just drink way too much soda, which is not good for me. I'll drink like coffee, I just don't really like it.
You gotta get on the Red Bull diet.
Red Bull makes me sleepy. I swear. Yeah.
Too much caffeine starts reverse.
Yeah, it starts melting my brain, I think.
The caffeine do you have ADHD?
I do have ADHD, actually.
All right. Caffeine, I'm pretty sure caffeine doesn't work, so what the soda is doing for you is it's just giving you a sugar rush. You know, like,
probably.
It's the caffeine.
Yeah, probably. Anyway, episode number 77. The baseball season has ended. It's over.
Boo.
It's all
Davis beat me in fantasy.
Jake sucks at fantasy, and I beat him the first.
I really do.
Yeah, that guy's a bum. However, people who aren't bums are the two guys we're going to talk about for our hot week. So since September 27th, our last podcast, the hottest hitter in baseball is Francisco Lindor of the New York Mets. He hit 389. 522 on base, slugged 1.056, got 7 runs, 4 dingers, 8 RBIs, threw in a steal in there. Also worth 0.7 F4 on the week. He broke a Mets milestone, which I'm sure you're most likely going to tell us about.
I don't know what you're talking about. I know that he reached 30-30, and he wouldn't have done it without those 4 home runs because he finished the season 31-31. So those 4 homers just got him there. It was definitely a hot streak that was worth it. And it's crazy to me to think that he's like been underrated because with 6 F4 this season, that's back-to-back seasons of at least 6 F4. And he was worth 4.2 F4 in his first season in New York. So it's pretty wild that Mets fans are disappointed with what he's doing. Obviously, a lot of his value comes from his defense, but his bat over the past 2 years has been above 20% better than league average. So, I mean, he's an elite power speed guy, very solid hitter, not like an elite hitter, but definitely very solid. And then with some of the best shortstop defense in baseball, it makes him one of the most valuable players in baseball. And the Mets are lucky to have him. And it still feels like, I mean, even from an outside perspective, it still feels like I'm underwhelmed with what he's doing, but he was crazy with the Guardians and now he's crazy here. He's at 47.7 F4. This guy's on a Hall of Fame pace. He's still only 29.
That's crazy. The one that I was talking about, this is per Anthony DiComo, who does a lot of stuff for the Mets. He joins some illustrious Mets as the only ones with 30-30 season in the blue and orange. David Wright.
Darryl Strawberry.
Darryl Strawberry is one. Who's the other
one? I don't know.
Howard Johnson. Whoever that guy is.
Have you looked at that guy? He's got some sneaky good stats.
Yeah, I feel like I've heard Frank the Tank talk about him before.
Yeah, top 5 Mets of all time. He's like,
Howard
Johnson.
Howard Johnson. He has that one guy that he absolutely hates for no reason.
I have no idea. That guy.
I love Frank. I'm not a big Barstool fan, but I like Frank. Frank knows ball like nobody else. But yeah, Lindor, I completely agree with you. I think he's on a Hall of Fame trajectory. And it's a shame because it honestly feels like a bunch of the people kind of just slate Lindor for no reason. Like he hasn't been worth his contract. Yeah, he was sort of slumping to start the season, but he finished out really strong. 30-30. I mean, like it's hard to be like, oh yeah, this guy sucks. Like, why are we paying him all this money? He's like one of the only productive hitters on your team this year. Yeah. But yeah, I think Lindor is easily on a Hall of Fame trajectory if he just kind of maintains the space. The defense will help him a whole lot as well. Potentially the best defensive shortstop maybe of this generation. It's kind of a tough call with a few other names, but he's very, very good. Just like his former teammate, Chris Bassett. Against the Yankees on the 28th, he went 7 2/3 innings, 5 hits, 0 runs. Got 1 walk, 12 Ks, 21 whiffs. Good for a 41% call strikes plus whiffs percentage. This is another guy that I always really like reading the pitcher list descriptions. If you don't know pitcher list, it's the main reason I finished above Jake in the fantasy league.
You're welcome.
That's also because Jake works there. And his boss always on the starting pitcher streamer ranks describes Chris Bassett pretty much always as a auto start, as being opponent agnostic, and he does this against the Yankees pretty well. 21 call strikes plus whiffs.
I thought the coolest part of this start is that he went 7 2/3, and that was exactly how many innings were required for him to reach exactly 200 innings on the season.
That's
so his
sick.
manager allowed him to push past the let's see, how many pitches did he throw? He threw 106 pitches, so his manager allowed him to go over 100 pitches, even with a postseason berth on the line. Not on the line, but with a postseason run coming up in the next week. And he did it. He reached 7 2/3. He struck out 12 batters, which I think was his season high, tied his season high from June 29th. And that was versus the Giants. Great season from Bassett. It's like there's some aspects that suggest this was his best season, right? He had over 200 innings pitched. He was tallied his most strikeouts as well, but he fell back in some of the ratio departments and definitely wasn't as good as he was with the A's and the Mets last year. But he also set a career high in wins. Still just like a very, very consistent pitcher over the last couple of years. Super underrated because he doesn't strike out a lot of guys. And while, you always want more strikeouts, that's the best for producing good results. It doesn't really matter because if you got a guy throwing 200 innings of 3.5 ERA ball, it really doesn't matter what path he takes to get there. That's just super incredibly valuable.
Yeah. He had a pretty sneaky good season there. 200 innings pitched, 186 Ks, which I think he ended up with like almost a 23% strikeout percentage, which is really good. He doesn't walk anybody, and he has like a mid-3s ERA. Like, he's exactly what you wanted him to be. He's one of the best 3 starters, if not the best 3 starter probably in the game. And also joins the list. Jake sent one to our group chat earlier of former Oakland A's that are on the playoff rosters, which we will talk about in a little bit as
Is this
well.
your friend?
Huh?
Is that your friend?
No. I don't know who that
what
is,
the
dude.
frick?
That guy's weird, bro.
All right. Well, we'll move on from that.
That guy is something else. But anyway, we can talk about our players of the week. So since the week of the 30th. On the AL side, another pitcher, Justin Verlander of a playoff team, Houston Astros. And NL side, guy that plays for definitely not a playoff team, Nolan Jones, Colorado Rockies.
Yeah. I no idea what Verlander did. I'm attempting to pull that up right now. But definitely not the season I think the Mets or the Astros or Verlander hoped that he would have, but ending it on a high note is definitely encouraging, especially when he's headed for a postseason appearance. Let's see. His final start from the 30th was 5 innings, 2 hits, no earned, 3 walks, 5 Ks. And the start before that was 8 innings, 3 hits, 1 earned, 1 walk, and 8 strikeouts. Pretty interesting. He had 11 whiffs and 30% CSW in the first one, and 7 whiffs and 25% CSW in the second one. Yeah, he's just been, I don't know. He's sort of just like what you'd expect of like a 40-year-old future Hall of Fame pitcher, where it's just like, yeah, he's thrown a lot of innings. He's not going to be the same spring chicken that he was. And even after he convinced us otherwise last year with his Cy Young winning campaign, he's been more human this year, more hittable, and even still, he's really incredible. 3.22 ERA, 162 innings pitched, and his strikeouts have fallen a lot, but he's still really good. And he helped the Astros to the postseason. I thought it was crazy that they were able to win the division on the last day of the season.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy playoff race, especially because like the Mariners fell out of it on like the second to last day, and then the Astros just sort of ran away with it. I think didn't the Rangers miss the playoffs?
No, because the one of those 3 was going to miss the playoffs. So when the Mariners missed it, the Rangers were locked in. The Rangers just missed the division.
Okay, that's right. Yeah, still pretty crazy. And then on the NL side, Nolan Jones. We were just talking about it before the podcast. One of a laundry list of pretty bad Cleveland trades is what it's looking like. I think he ended up getting close to 2020, if not going 2020. For a reason, it's showing like his fielding splits on my fan graphs.
That's what I'm seeing.
Yeah, my fan graphs is broken. But yeah, like Nolan Jones really looks pretty good. What is up with fan graphs? That is crazy.
You can use Pitcher List player page.
I'm gonna have to, man. Yeah, even if I click like standard betting, it's not working. I'm about to use a baseball reference and not be able to use cool advanced stats.
That's why you go on Pitcher Lists.
I'm going to. I pull it up though.
Yeah, he was really great this year. We were talking before the podcast about how bad the Guardians have been with their trades recently, because not only did they give up Nolan Jones and not get much in return, but they did the same with Will Benson, and there have been other examples of that recently as well. So definitely unfortunate for them trading a couple of their young stars. But our Rockies, they get a big guy, Nolan Jones, who strikes out a lot, probably won't bat 297 for a long time. The guy sported a 401 BABIP across 106 games. That's likely to come down significantly, but he's still in Coors, so he's probably going to be a guy that's going to sport like 350 BABIPs because he hits the ball really hard, because he's fast, and because he plays most of his games in Coors. He is really fast. Finished the season 2020 in 106 games. Definitely an exciting guy. I could see him getting like a ton of hype in fantasy this upcoming offseason. Especially in roto leagues where, power and speed is super coveted and you're not dinged for strikeouts. But with the underlying metrics that I'm seeing, with the big strikeout numbers, the super high BABIP, and being in your second full season, so you got that sophomore slump, and also being on the Rockies, who really aren't going to help you improve in many ways, I could definitely see him declining. Hopefully not significantly, but definitely could see him being an underwhelming guy in fantasy next year and being drafted like, I don't know, inside the top 150, something crazy.
Yeah, he led all qualified rookies this season in average on base and slug. He went 20 home runs, 20 steals. He also had 20 doubles, or 20 more doubles. And he also joined Anthony Volpe as the only other rookie since Mike Trout. So they're the first two to have 20 home runs, 20 steals, and also have 10 defensive runs saved. So he's a good fielder in the outfield, which is obviously very important if you play in Coors, because that place is miserable if you're an outfielder. Just ask Charlie Blackmon. But yeah, I mean, he's really good. And this rookie class in general has looked extremely solid, just completely apart from Nolan Jones. And even with the Rockies, I mean, they have Brenton Doyle. Hello.
He was smiling coming in like, I'm about to ruin the podcast.
Hi, Bingus. But yeah, Nolan Jones, I'm a pretty big fan. I do think he's probably going to be overrated, especially in the fantasy league that we play in, just because the strikeout rate is a little high.
In ours, I think it'll be accounted for because of the strikeouts. But I think in Roto, where you're just looking at like home run, steals, and batting average, then it's like, but I don't know. People are getting smarter. You mentioned Charlie Blackmon though, and he got re-signed for 2024. Did you see that?
Sure did.
So his big like 6-year, $150 million contract was up this year, but he finished the season strong. He started off really slow. It looked like it was going to be his worst offensive season, and he had been getting worse for like 4 consecutive seasons. And then he got injured, and it really looked like it was just going to be like Charlie Blackmon goes out on a really quiet and sad note. And then he returned and he batted like 300 for the final couple months of the season. He only hit a few home runs. He's not a power hitter anymore, but he showed that he could still be like a solid hitter. And the Rockies are just trying to sell tickets. They don't really care if they're being competitive. So if Blackmon can just DH or play a little corner outfield and just bat 275 with 12 home runs, they're fine with that, because he's a fan favorite. I think that's a Charlie Blackmon bobblehead.
Charlie Blackmon is one of my favorite non-Cubs players. That is my guy. I really like Charlie Blackmon. Just always fun guy, sick look. One of my favorite swings in games. So I'm a big Charlie Blackmon guy. I really like that from him. And then we can, how do you want to do this? Do you want to do the postseason predictions first and then do our monthly review?
Yeah, that's what people came for. Let's not bury the lead.
Let's go for it.
Alrighty. We can just start from one league and then do the other league.
All right.
All right. Here is the postseason bracket. If you're watching, I'm sure we don't have any audio only listeners. That would be pretty wild. I'm sure we don't have many listeners anyway. But here we've got the postseason bracket. It is all set. I mean, obviously the season is over, but it really didn't get set until the final day of the season. The only change we saw there was the Astros moving into the getting a bye week, which was pretty crazy to see on the last day, and maybe a couple of the wild card matchups being decided. But anyway, we'll start at the top left with the first American League wildcard series. You got the 6th seed, the Toronto Blue Jays, versus the 3 seed, the Minnesota Twins. This wildcard series is 3 games. Davis, who you got?
I think I'm still going to go Jays. I feel like the Twins are the fakest. They obviously won the division, so they have to be the 3 seed, but I feel like the Twins are probably the weakest team
in the whole playoffs.
In the entire playoffs,
Yeah.
not just on the AL side. I think even the Jays, with all of their very clear holes and sort of struggles like this season, I still think they're a better team than the Twins. So I think I'm just going to go Jays.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we're going to see this year is that a lot of the good teams don't have good pitching, good starting pitching at the very least. The Dodgers have like Clayton Kershaw. The Braves have, I don't know, Spencer Strider. The Orioles have Kyle Bradish. Not too many options from the big teams there, and like even the Astros, they have a pretty deep rotation, but it's not the same as it was last year. But the Blue Jays Twins matchup, that's where we're going to see like 2 really good starting pitching teams. And I think then the edge goes to the offense, and the Twins are definitely an offense that I'm not afraid of. And while they do have a really good back end of the bullpen with Yohan Duran, I don't think it holds up against the hot Blue Jays lineup. So I think the Blue Jays take this one despite home field advantage for the Twins.
Definitely. I just want to reiterate, Jake, our way too early predictions. I had the Twins, the only one that said the Twins are going to win it.
We're stupid.
And yeah, I'm a genius. I got the Twins in the playoffs. And
but you also said the Rays would miss the playoffs.
Well, I had to pick someone to get eliminated, and they had the lowest win total. I'll just pick them.
Who did I say? The Guardians? I was right.
I think that sounds right. Let me pull it up. Let me pull up the receipts.
While you do that, I'll move over to the next wild card matchup. Yeah. And this is the Rangers versus the Rays. Another situation where we've got teams that are dealing with lots of injuries and mostly in the rotation. I mean, obviously the Rays are without Wander Franco, but they're also without a ton of guys in the rotation. Shane McClanahan, Shane Baz, Drew Rasmussen, and who's the Jeffrey Springs. And then for the Rangers, they're without DeGrom and some other guys that I'm not going to try to remember right now, but this should be an interesting matchup. You got like the hottest teams from the first half of the season. The Rangers have just an elite offense and nothing outside of that. Their bullpen has been awful in September, and I'm not super confident in the rotation, especially because Eovaldi is not who he was in the first half. And then the Rays, you've got, I don't know, probably the smartest team in baseball. They've got a pretty deep offense that will surprise you in the playoffs, and a rotation that is surprisingly solid still with all those injuries, and a bullpen that you can always count on. Who you got, Davis?
I'm going to go Rangers. As much as I really like the Rays, and mainly a large chunk of their offense carried my fantasy lineup this year, I think that they still have a decent bit in their rotation, potentially better than what the Rays have, outside of like Eflin. Jordan Montgomery has been very good. If Nathan Eovaldi can be somewhat effective, like, and just eat innings in the playoffs, I think they'll be fine. Dane Dunning has also been decent. Also in the season, they've played the Rays 6 times and they're 4-2. So I feel like their offense could be the one that swings this, because the Rangers offense, honestly, from this side in the AL, I think maybe might be the best offense of any of the teams left.
The Rangers?
I think so. I think the offense.
It's close. The Astros are really good.
The Astros are, besides the Astros, maybe. I think other than that, and that's the only one that really has a conversation, I think the Rangers have the best offense. If their pitching can just sort of hold up, I think they could beat the Rays.
Yeah, and I'm on the side where I don't think that pitching is going to hold up. Maybe so in the first half, but losing DeGrom and then also having a lot of their guys that they counted on all year not being at that same level, Will Smith, Chapman, Nathan Eovaldi, and having to rely on some guys like I don't know, freaking Dane Dunning is going to pitch like game 3 of the series, and we're going to be like, whoa,
He's been
that
kind of a
sucks.
guy this year,
He
though.
really has been a guy this year, but I think it's smoke and mirrors. It's a lot of called
It
strike
is.
sinkers. So I'm going pitching. Pitching wins championships. So I'm going the Rays here. And now we can move on to the ALDS, the 5-game series. The Astros and the Orioles will have a layoff all this week. I think the ALDS starts because it goes Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. The ALCS, I think, starts on Saturday. So we'll see that, or ALDS starts on Saturday. We'll see that this weekend. But we both chose the Blue Jays on the top part of the bracket. So it'll be Blue Jays versus Astros. Astros, just such a dominant team year in, year out. They barely won the division this year, and it seems like they took a step back. But you look at the roster, and it's like, they have an incredible bullpen. Their rotation is very solid, and their lineup is one of the best in baseball. And they're going up against the Blue Jays. Who you got here?
I have the Astros. I think it's pretty much bog standard at this point to just pencil them in the ALCS until otherwise proven. I think it's going to be the Astros pretty handily, just because the Blue Jays are they're really beaten up. They've sort of struggled a whole lot. They kind of limped into the postseason, not really on fine form. I just don't think they have much of a chance against the Astros, to be honest.
I agree. Astros are too much of a juggernaut, and it'll be really hard to take them down. Mm-hmm. They're just such a well-built team, and even more so for the postseason, because they do have starters that they can rely on, and they have a bullpen that's super deep and a lineup that's just incredible top to bottom. So I think the Astros are really going to be tough to beat. So then in the bottom half, you chose the Rangers to beat the Rays. So you'll have Rangers versus Orioles. I think we see a lot of similarities between these two teams. The Orioles really not as offensively focused, but they do have a lot of like no-name starters that are really good. Like Grayson Rodriguez was the best starting pitching prospect in baseball before this year, and nobody really knows about him unless they're like baseball nerds like us. And then they have got like Kyle Bradish, who's been really good this season. I'll give him that, but he's not a household name. And maybe we'll finally learn these names because these guys have a bigger stage to pitch on. But they clearly are inferior in the offensive department, not to take anything away from the Orioles, but the Rangers offense is really good. And then their bullpen, well, definitely better than the Rangers, is missing a key component in Felix Bautista, who's likely to win the AL Reliever of the Year award. He is undergoing Tommy John surgery. Unfortunately, he'll miss all of the postseason and all of 2024, but he was the guy that sort of made things go in the bullpen. And while the Orioles are really good at churning out relievers, they've sort of become bullpen gurus, a la the Rays and the Dodgers. But here they stand without Felix Bautista and an inferior offense. Are they able to stand up against the Rangers with their unknown pitching?
I do think so. I have a pretty good feeling about the Orioles. It feels like a destiny kind of year for them. So I feel pretty strongly. I think the Orioles were like lineup could hold up. And then their 3 starters, like Bradish, Rodriguez, and Means are probably going to be there 1 through 3. They also have Jack Flaherty, who has a little bit of like postseason experience.
He's been pitching out of the bullpen for a month.
He has, but if they need to throw him into the rotation, they can. Kyle Gibson.
Well, they got wait, don't say anything. Don't say anything. Don't say anything. If you say something, I'm removing you from the podcast. Wait. Wow, where is it? One sec.
Dean Kramer.
They got Dean Kramer. Let him pitch game 1.
Team Israel GOAT Dean
That's
Kramer.
Right.
I streamed him like 4 times this year in fantasy.
Represent Shana Tova, Dean Kramer.
The GOAT. I think the Orioles are going to beat the Rangers. I just don't think the Rangers like makeshift rotation. I think they could get through a wild card series with it. I feel like once you get to a longer series, probably not going to hold up. Lineup also kind of full of right-handed hitters. Those go to die in Camden Yards. So, which they'll obviously have home field advantage. So I think I would go with the Orioles in this series. And you chose the Rays. How do you feel about this series?
Yeah, I think the Rays are a more well-built team than the Rangers. So that sort of helps them in a longer series of 5 games. But I agree. I didn't wear this Orioles hat for nothing. I think the Orioles are a team of destiny this year. And while we'll talk about them in the next round, I do think they're going to win at least this first round. I think they're a really exciting and fun team. They got the vibes. It's one of the things I usually look at. That was like the Phillies last year. They were a vibes team. It's like, yeah. So I think they're really going to have a lot of success early on. Maybe that layoff, though, takes away from the vibes. The vibes die down. But maybe some rest for some of the younger guys. I think the inexperience will catch up to them. And we can talk about that next series. The ALCS will have the Astros versus the Orioles. The Orioles, the new up and coming team in the AL. The Astros, the long standing best team in that league. And they're just really difficult to beat. So Astros versus Orioles. This one's a difficult choice. You got vibes versus just maybe the most well-built team in baseball. Who you got?
Orioles, baby.
Yeah.
I'm going with the Orioles. Okay, so you talk about the vibes. Completely agree. They're immaculate right now. I think it is honestly sort of a good thing to have a lot of young guys be on your roster for a playoff run like this, because there's a chance that none of them are in their head. And if you've watched the Orioles play a lot this year, a lot of those young guys that haven't been there before, they play with so much confidence and so much swagger, and it's just enjoyable to watch them play baseball. Not only are they backed by a bunch of young guns, immaculate vibes, Brooks Robinson passed away, and I feel like that should be such a huge catalyst for them. Brooks Robinson, obviously, potentially, other than like Cal Ripken and Jim Palmer, the greatest Oriole in history. It just feels like the year for the Orioles to take down the Astros, and I really want it to happen too. I'm sick of the Astros being in every World Series, so I'm very inclined to go with the Orioles here.
I was on the same path. I did a podcast at the end of last week, the reliever podcast that I do that comes out every Friday. We did postseason predictions as well to close out the podcast, and I reached the same conclusion for the ALCS matchup, but I wasn't sure who to move on because the right answer to me was the Astros, but the answer that I wanted was the Orioles. But being a bullpen podcast, I said this really rides on Felix Bautista being available. And now without Felix Bautista, I know that's like one player, and it's like baseball can't really be decided by one player, but Bautista is like a different guy. And to really shut down games like he can do, it would really made a huge difference, especially when every single out is going to count here. And I think the inexperience that the Orioles have, as well as the lack of pitching, I think is going to come back to bite them. But I think they'll put up a fight. I feel like it's going to go like 6 games at the very least, but I think the Astros are going to move on. I think that's the right answer, though. I'll obviously be rooting really hard for the Orioles, and I think those vibes could come through, but maybe they die out, or maybe they're not strong enough because of the bye week. So I have the Astros in the World Series. You have the Orioles. We'll move to the National League. And starting at the top right, we've got the Diamondbacks versus the Brewers. The Diamondbacks started the year off really hot, sort of trailed off throughout the year, but held on just for the final wildcard spot in the National League. Their team also no pitching. They got Merrill Kelly. They got Brandon Pfaadt starting the first game. And they've got Merrill Kelly and Zach Gallen. So they're really going to need to get to 3 games because I think Gallen will probably start that final game. And then their offense is sort of lacking, and their bullpen has been up and down all year. They got Paul Sewald, so that's helped it out a little bit. But the Brewers are sort of opposite, where they are all starting pitching, all back into the bullpen, and then their offense leaves a lot to be desired. I mean, their rotation might be one of the best in baseball, though Brandon Woodruff out for the wild card series, so they'll have to turn to freaking Wade Miley for game 3 or Adrian Hauser or something. And that'll be after Corbin Burns and Freddie Peralta start the first 2 games. So that'll be really interesting. Who do you got here? Who do you think is better built for a 3-game series in the postseason?
As much as it hurts my heart, I think it's the Milwaukee Brewers. I just think their rotation, and especially their bullpen also, the pitching is so good. Diamondbacks are also a young team, but I don't think they're as offensively dominant as like any of the other teams that we've talked about. They have some guys, don't get me wrong, but this is a team that just sort of squeaked into the playoffs also against the Brewers, who won a division. They have guys that are playoff ready, and they've been there before, even though they have like quite a few young guys in there as well. I just think that this is a Brewers matchup, and they just match up really well against the Diamondbacks, even if it is no Brandon Woodruff for this series. Corbin Burns, he's really good. In case you didn't
Yeah,
know, Freddie Peralta also had sort of an up and down season. Also, still been really good though.
he
And
was
then
wet.
even if you need a guy like Wade Miley, I mean, he's been there, he's done that. Yeah,
Yeah,
Adrian Hauser too.
he's
I
been
mean, like,
taken out after the first pitch.
yeah, well, that guy stinks. Adrian Hauser, I think he could get it done. I feel like the Brewers probably win this matchup.
I'm on the same side there. I think the Diamondbacks don't really seem ready for it. They have not been having the right trajectory to their second half.
Mhm.
They seem to be continuously falling off. I think the offense could easily get shut down by Corbin Burns in game one, and then it's just like you're fighting for your life in game two. And that'll be against Freddie Peralta. So it's going to be really tough. And with Devin Williams at the back end of the bullpen, I think the Brewers pull through. So then the other wild card matchup, we've got the Marlins versus the Phillies. And I think this one's going to be really interesting, though I think it could have been more interesting if the Marlins had a rotation. It is all gone. They were a team that was all pitching, and now Sandy Alcantara injured, likely to go undergo Tommy John surgery. Ari Perez on the IL as well, so they'll be relying on like Jesus Luzardo, Braxton
Garrett.
Garrett, Edward Cabrera, who are still really great secondary options, but they're not a former NL Cy Young Award pitcher and probably the best young pitcher in baseball. And they'll be going up against the reigning National League champion, the Phillies, who, while they played better than they did last year, that was because they added more to their team. Their bullpen is maybe the best bullpen in baseball, definitely the best bullpen in this postseason, the whole postseason bracket, which is saying something because there are some really good teams here. They've got a super deep, strong bullpen there. They've got starters Nola, Zach Wheeler, Ranger Suarez that they can count to go 6 innings, and they've got one of the best lineups, which is quietly underperforming, I think, this year. But like with Trey Turner turning around in the second half, you got Bryce Harper heating up, Kyle Schwarber hitting 50 bombs. They have options, especially with like Bryson Stott and Brandon Marsh, who seem to be guys that you needed in the lineup last year, but they never really came through during the playoffs. Now those guys are legit guys. Brandon Marsh has had a couple good months this year. Bryson Stott, great all year long. The Phillies, for me, are honestly one of the favorites in this entire bracket. How do you feel about them matching up against the Marlins?
Yeah, it's Red October, Jake. I think the Phillies probably, in terms of the playoffs, just in general, and especially on the NL side, they're, for me, the most dangerous team not
They're
named the
built
Atlanta Braves.
so well.
They are, and they're built for the playoffs with a lot of guys that had been there before and put up some pretty big performances also. Like you said, they have a really, really good bullpen. They have really solid 1 through 3 in their rotation. I think the Phillies win this pretty handily against the Marlins. And the Marlins, I think, are a good team also. It's just there's no depth with their starting rotation now.
And their
A lot of the guys,
sucks.
their offense is not good, and it hasn't really been good in a long time. I think this is the Phillies running away.
I agree, and then watch it happen like Marlins winning too. I mean,
Yeah,
that's just these series.
It'll be like the Cubs series against the Marlins during the short season where they scored, like, the Marlins held them to like 2 runs over 2 games, or like a run over 2 games, or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And just win.
And now we'll move on to the
Go for it.
NLDS, the 5-game series. We got the Dodgers versus the Brewers, and you already know who I'm going to pick, because even if I had to choose like who I will, just based on numbers, I still think I would have made the same decision. But just picking based off the team that I want to move on, it's clearly the Brewers for me. The Dodgers, they're perennially one of the best teams in the National League. Their bullpen not as strong as years past. Their lineup not as dangerous as years past, and their rotation very, very young, and literally like it's like Clayton Kershaw, Ryan Pepio, Bobby Miller, and Lance Lynn. Lance Lynn has been home run city. Clayton Kershaw is like 65 years old, and Bobby Miller and Ryan Pepio are like 17 years old. So it's going to be a lot of reliance on either inexperience or old guys that, outside of Kershaw, haven't had their best season this year, while the Brewers will be coming off a win in the wild card series. Who you got here, Davis?
Dodgers still.
No.
I think it's the Dodgers. Look, man, if you can't pick the Dodgers, I'm not picking the Brewers. I already did it once. I'm not doing it again. I think the Dodgers offense is good enough to overcome the Brewers starting pitching. And I think that they'll be able to get the job done with what they have left in the rotation. Bobby Miller, that guy's disgusting. Clayton Kershaw has been still extremely effective during the season, even though he's like throwing like 80 miles an hour now.
Mhm.
I really think the Dodgers are just built for this occasion better, even with young guys. It's just a culture kind of thing. It feels like the
Well,
Dodgers are more apt to get this one done than the Brewers would be for me.
I hate to tell you that you're wrong, but that's okay. You can make it up here in the other matchup in the
I won't.
NLDS. We both have the Phillies and the Braves here. Braves, best team in baseball all year. I think they won 104 games, and
Mhm.
they were really good. The best offense in baseball. They tied the single season team home run record. They had a guy go 40-70. They've got one of the deepest lineups, maybe the best lineup I've ever seen in my life. And then they have a bullpen that is really deep, has been trustworthy all year. But then their rotation has lost some guys and is not really as strong as it once was. Max Fried out. Kyle Wright has barely pitched this year. Charlie Morton out. It leaves like Spencer Strider and some other guys. So that's Spencer Strider. That's probably a game they can win. But the rest of them, I'm not super confident about. And the Phillies, we both have raved about them. Who you got here, Davis?
Red October.
That's right.
I think the Phillies are going to win this series, and I don't even think it's going to go to 7 games. I think it'll be in 5 or 6. I just don't think that the Braves' rotation, let alone their bullpen, is good enough to handle what the Phillies can put out. While the Braves lineup has been extremely good, if these games go to Philly, I think Philly wins them every
Mhm.
single one at Citizens Bank Park. It's almost been like a fortress. I think they're like 40 and like 20, or it's like 40 and like 19 or something like that in playoff games played at Citizens Bank Park. It's also the last couple of years that they've won the World Series. So they won in 1980 with a 91 and 71 record. Fine. 2008 also won 92 and 70, 90 and 72 this year. They've never really been super, super impressive during their runs. I think the Phillies lineup is just as dangerous as the Braves lineup. Maybe not necessarily top to bottom, but the big boppers in the middle of that lineup: Trey Turner, Bryce Harper, Castellanos, Schwarber. That lineup is just as good in the middle of it. I think the bullpen is a whole lot better, and I think the rotation with Wheeler and Nola and Ranger Suarez are better than Spencer Strider, who is a coin flip. Spencer Strider is either going to go out and go 7 and strike out 14, or he's going to go 5 and strike out 10, but he's going to give up 7 runs. So, like, I think if they lose the Strider start, it's over for the Braves. I really do.
100% agree there. So that sets up our NLCS matchup. You have the Dodgers versus the Phillies. I have the Brewers versus the Phillies. I have a feeling either way we're choosing the same team.
Red October, baby.
That's
It's
right.
it's the Phillies. I feel like the Phillies are genuinely, outside of the Braves, they're the best team on the NL side, and it's
Yep.
not really close either. Their lineups, like, I don't know how much I need to keep saying it. Their lineups really good. I think their lineup's better than the Dodgers. I think their starting rotation's better than Dodgers, and their bullpen is definitely better than Dodgers.
Yep.
If they end up playing the Dodgers, they're better than them. Same as the Brewers. Their rotation, probably not as good, depending on if the Brewers get Woodruff back. But I think that's also maybe a 50-50. Like, Wheeler and Nola, really good. Woodruff and
Yeah.
Burns, Peralta, really good. But their lineup is 3 times the lineup that anything that the Brewers could put out. And then
Mhm.
the Brewers' strength in their bullpen is near the back end with like Piamps and Abner Uribe, sort of. Depends on if he decides he wants to throw strikes or not. And Devin Williams. I think the Phillies are just built for a really, really deep run. And now that
Mhm.
I've said that, I know they're going to win one game and lose to the Marlins in the wild card. But
Yep.
if it's on right now on paper, I have the Phillies in the World Series.
All right. So that means our World Series matchups for you is Phillies and Orioles. And for me, it's a rematch of last year, the Astros versus the Phillies, which that sort of makes me feel like I'm wrong. But like we have not seen a repeat champion since like 1999 or 2000, whenever the Yankees last went back to back. And while I don't think that's going to happen this year, I think it's not impossible or even unlikely that we would see a repeat matchup in the World Series that would be a little bit boring in terms of the storylines and stuff. And I would prefer to see Orioles Phillies. I think that would be great. But I think it's going to be Astros Phillies, and I think it's Phillies in 7.
I'm struggling here. I think the matchup I have chosen is without a doubt the best vibes matchup of the two teams. I feel like everyone would be like, outside of like if you're a fan of a team that plays in the same division as one of these. As much as I want to say Orioles like it's a team of destiny, I feel like the Phillies win in 7. I feel like the Phillies would beat the Orioles. But I feel like it's this one, it would be a huge coin flip for me, because a lot of the big power that comes from the Phillies are right-handed hitters as well, like a lot of their lineup. So that's kind of where they go to die. But for the Phillies, their bullpen is better than the Orioles. Said that. Lineup definitely better, and their rotation definitely better. So on paper, it'd be the Phillies, but vibes, I would go with the Orioles. I think I'm going to say Phillies win, but I think the Orioles could just as easily win and be in 7.
All right, we both have the Phillies. We're Phillies fans this October.
Yep.
I gotta get a Phillies hat. I have a Phillies shirt like I did last year, but yeah, we'll see. It should be really exciting. Starts
Big
tomorrow
Phillies
at 12.
guys.
Of course, I'm going to be at work. But yeah, I'm super pumped for the postseason. But now we can review the month of September and the first day of October along with it.
Definitely. We can start with the league leaders in batting average. On the AL side, Yandy Diaz, 345 for the month. And on the NL side, San Diego Padres, marquee signing from the offseason, Xander Bogaerts, hitting 417.
Yeah, that was dope to see Yandy finish out the season strong, because he was super incredible all year long. Is Fangraphs back? Yeah,
Sort of.
just Nolan Jones.
Just look at Nolan Jones.
Incredible season, batting 330, 4.7 F4, best season of his career. And I think the craziest part was that he added power to his game, hitting 22 home runs, which is crazy, made him a 164 WRC plus hitter. Just an incredible job by the Rays there to finally help him tap into that power while still maintaining his incredible contact abilities. But great month from Yandy Diaz in the batting average department to finish strong. And then for Bogaerts, I mean, pretty surprising how bad he was this year, but he really salvaged his season by batting over 400 in the final month, because 285 on the year, he must have been batting in the 260s heading into September, and he still finished with over 4 F4 because he's become such a better defender, and 19 homers, 19 steals. But yeah, I mean, you can see in just the WRC plus 120, that's his worst since 2017 when he was 24 years old. So he definitely took a step back this year. And while he recovered his power a little, I still think he leaves a lot to be desired. And to have a $280 million contract, I think is going to bite the Padres in the ass pretty hard at some point. Not yet, though, because Bogaerts had a big month of September.
Definitely. Yandy Diaz won the AL batting title also.
Let's go.
Important to talk about that. Can you name all of the Tampa Bay Rays batting title winners?
No.
I can, because it's only one. It's Yandy Diaz. He's the only one in Rays history that has won an AL batting title. Congratulations to Yandy, making a little bit of team history for the Tampa Bay Rays. I agree with the points on Xander Bogaerts. That contract looks sort of rough, but he sort of salvaged his season a little bit. I know he had like hot stretches here and there and really finished it strong, but the Padres have a lot of questions to answer in the offseason. We can go to the runs leaders, and on the AL side, it is Marcus Semien of the Texas Rangers, playoff team, and then Gunnar Henderson, also 23. So 2 playoff teams. I said they're going to meet in the ALDS right there with our runs leaders of the month. And on the NL side, we've talked about this guy a few times before, Ronald Acuna Jr., 29.
I'll skip on Semien because we'll have a chance to talk about him in a different spot. But Gunnar Henderson, 22 years old, really had a great first full season, 123 WRC plus, worth nearly 5 F4, 28 homers, 10 steals. And he was integral to the Orioles lineup after a slow start. He turned it on and across the final 4 months of the season. and finished strong here, scoring a lot. And then Acuna, obviously, one of the most notable players in the season. We were live when he got 40-70 last week. He finished the season 41-73 with 149 runs. Just absolutely ridiculous. 170 WRC plus, worth significantly over 8-4 as well. Just an incredible season. And to wrap it up with 29 runs in the final month is pretty crazy.
Definitely. We talked about Gunnar Henderson a little bit too. He's the rookie home run leader, and he's the AL rookie RBI leader also. Pretty complete season for him. I think he's worth almost 5 F4, which is pretty crazy for a rookie campaign, especially after his slow start. I'm going to kind of save the spiel on Ronald Acuna Jr. because we talk about that guy all the time. We can talk about the guy you were going to mention earlier also, because we're going to repeat his name right now. On the AL side for the home runs leaders of the month, Marcus Semien, again, joins 2 more names, which are Nelson Velazquez, the Kansas City Royals, and Logan O'Hoppe of the O'Hoppe, whatever, that guy of the Los Angeles Angels with 9, and then 2 Braves join this list for the home run leaders of the month. Matt Olson and Ronald Acuna Jr. Both have 11.
On the same team. That's wild. I'll take Nelson Velazquez if you want to take O'Hoppe. I know you were hyped on him earlier this season, but I think you could probably say something about Velazquez too, because that trade was awful. The Cubs traded him and plenty of years of control for Jose Cuas, who was definitely important for them, but they didn't make the postseason, and now they're stuck with like a old reliever who, while he does have a lot more control, I don't think is going to be as valuable as Velazquez, who posted a 132 WRC plus on the season. Just a big home run hitter. He went on a power surge with the Royals, hitting 14 home runs for them in just 40 games. Pretty crazy. Not a good fielder. Strikes out a lot, doesn't walk a lot, but he definitely has power. It seems like Jorge Soler to me is what Nelson Velazquez is.
It's very, very apt. And the reason that they traded him and made that move is because they sort of needed someone in their bullpen with profile that Jose Cuas has. David Ross is now doing the Joe Madden with him and burning him down like he's Steve Cishek and having him throw 95 innings a season.
Yep.
But yeah, Nelson Velazquez, they traded him because he was just never going to play. They sort of did him a favor. He was up and down, kind of a quadruple A player for them. And now he's actually going to get at bats in Kansas City. The Jorge Soler trade is extremely, or comparison is extremely accurate just because of the trade situation too. They traded Jorge Soler to the Royals.
I forgot about that. Wow, I am a genius.
They traded him for Wade Davis.
I don't wear glasses.
Another reliever trade too. Logan O'Hoppe is my pick. I tried to pick him as like a sleeper pick to win AL Rookie of the Year, and he's been hitting for power since he's really come back, but he missed the vast majority of the season with that injury that he had to start. But he still posted pretty respectable line in 50 games, played 51 games. He hit 14 home runs in 51 games, 29 RBI, and he posted a 113 WRC plus. He doesn't walk very much, but he still hits for a lot of power as a catcher. I like him a lot, and he's going to be a piece for an Angels team that is most likely going to be extremely bad for the next few years, unfortunately for him.
Yeah, and then Matt Olson with 11 home runs in the final month to put the finishing touches on his Major League Baseball home run title, 54 for the season. Absolutely incredible what this guy is doing, replacing Freddie Freeman. He might be the only first baseman in baseball that's able to replace Freddie Freeman in Atlanta. 6.6 F4 this year, his most in a single season, also 160 WRC plus, his career high in a season of more than 60 games. He's played in all 162 games in each of the past 2 seasons. This is the power hitting version of Cal Ripken Jr., if you ask me.
There you go. Yeah, they're looking pretty solid on that trade. 2 full seasons of him has resulted in a 261, 357, 540 slash line with a sub 900 OPS by a whopping 3 points. Got an 897 OPS, 141 WRC plus though. 10 almost 10 F4s or 9.8 F4, 88 home runs. You know, what else could you potentially want from this guy over 2 seasons? The guy's just really good. Ronald Acuna Jr., we don't really need to talk about him anymore. We all know how good he is. we can move on to our RBI leaders for the month. And here's a name that I feel like we probably have talked about maybe one time the entire year. On the AL side, Jose Abreu with 28 RBI, and on the NL side for RBI leaders is Juan Soto.
Yeah, Abreu definitely finishing strong, and I mean, he sort of had to guess because he had such a terrible first few months of the season.
Terrible.
Worst offensive season of his career anyway, 86 WRC plus. He was actually worth negative F4, but he showed the ability to tap back into his power. He was a 15 home run guy last year, batting over 300. This year, batted under 240, but he had 18 home runs. So he's not done yet. He's still going to be in Houston for 2 more years, and he'll have a chance at a World Series run this offseason or this postseason. And he's on the right path to having a lot of success there because he's finishing the season strong. And then Juan Soto had one of the best finishes in baseball to make his season look very impressive. And it comes out to the third best season of his career, 35 home runs, set a career high. And he also tied his career high in stolen bases. So that's huge. And then he was just great all around. I mean, he was batting probably in like the 250s in July or something, finished batting 275, and was just knocking in a ton of runs for the Padres. Still one of the best hitters in baseball, despite being underrated. He walked more than he struck out once again. One of my favorite things. And crazy, he is still only 24 and he is set to be a free agent after next year. That guy's going to get a lot of money.
Yes, he is. Jose Abreu, who got most of his RBIs, is what it felt like in the last 3-game series to sort of clinch their spot at the top of the division. But Juan Soto, yeah, I mean, he's one of the brightest young stars in baseball still. And it feels like he had a down year and his stats were still outrageous. What did he post? Like a 140 WRC plus, something crazy. And a down year for him. Yeah, 155 WRC plus, walked more than he struck out. Hit like what? How many home runs? 35 home runs, career high home runs. Sure. Yeah, down year for that bum. Nobody should ever pay him $1 gajillion. Yeah, two completely opposite guys. Jose Abreu posting a negative WAR, terrible WRC plus, and sort of really picking it up at the end of the season to sort of make it look semi-respectable. Juan Soto consistent throughout most of the season and just finishing really, really hot as well. Talk about the stolen bases leaders. We can talk about an Oakland Athletics player because, wow, that team is very bad. But they get they get steals leader in all of baseball, Esteury Ruiz, for the month with 14, beating fellow rookie Corbin Carroll by 1. He had 13. Tell us about star building block Esteury Ruiz for the A's.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy how many stolen bases we saw this season. Last year, we had one guy with 40 stolen bases. John Birdie had 41. This year, we had only 6 guys with 40 stolen bases, but there were a lot of guys with well more than 50, well more than 41, and a lot more guys stealing 20 to 30 bags, which is really cool. I think this was the season with the most steals since 1987, and it was the second most since in the live ball era, which is pretty crazy. Did not expect it. I expected the stolen bases to increase, but not by this much. I don't think it's the bags or the pickoff attempts. I think like players just started stealing again. And it was probably the pitch clock. A lot of that had to do with that too. But back to these two guys, Esteury Ruiz, 14 stolen bases, finished the season with 67, which set the American League record for rookies. Very cool. And Corbin Carroll, incredible season as well as a rookie. I feel like he wasn't talked about enough because Ronald Acuna Jr. was having an incredible season, but 25 homers and 54 stolen bases as a 23-year-old rookie is bonkers.
Yeah, it is. He is actually the second. He has the second most steals among rookies too. But obviously, he should. I mean, 54 steals. The only one ahead of him was Esteury Ruiz, who set the steals record for rookies. Whose steal record was that before? Do you know, Jake?
Ricky Henderson.
Kenny Lofton, perennially disrespected, should be Hall of Famer. Kenny Lofton, Esteury Ruiz. That guy's been really cool for my fantasy team all year, so shout out to that guy. Corbin Carroll, that guy's so good. I feel like if any other year, I mean, you could make a case for him to potentially be an MVP candidate also. Definitely runaway NL Rookie of the Year, kind of been that way since the start of the season.
Yeah.
25-54 is something else.
Also, outside of that, Bobby Witt Jr. going 30-49, one steal shy of 30-50.
God,
that's crazy. And that guy is also 23 years old.
Future is extremely bright for
baseball.
Yeah, for baseball in general. We talked about a couple of these guys too for OPS leaders. We already talked about Juan Soto. He led all of baseball in OPS, 1.156 OPS. And then on the AL side, Aaron Judge, 1.066 OPS.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about him, I think, last week. He set the record for the most home runs ever by a player to miss at least 50 games in a season. He's at 37. And yeah, just another great season. I think if he had played all year, he would have gotten pretty close to 60. Unfortunately, wasn't healthy, but still put up another great season. Not much to say. He will always be one of the best hitters in baseball, even if he doesn't play a full season, and hopefully we get that next year.
Definitely. So it's a real shame that we didn't get a full season of him again, because like the pace he was on was going to be like 60 home runs again before he got hurt. And even after he got hurt, it was just the 162 game pace really sucks. We can talk about the F4 leaders because we're just going to repeat his name again. Also, F4 leaders for the month, Marcus Semien and Aaron Judge for the AL, both with 1.5. On the NL side, Xander Bogaerts with a 2 F4 month. Pretty crazy.
Yeah, big month for Bogaerts, big month for Judge, but I'll give Semien his due now. He backed up another great season after his first season in Texas. Didn't get started off right, but he finished really strong. And then this year, he was just strong the whole year. The stolen bases died down a little bit, which is surprising considering the new rules, but he did hit 29 home runs, batted 276, which was his highest since 2019. And then he also got 6 F4, which is his third 6 or more F4 season of his career. Pretty cool. I think he's a really underrated player. He's just like a really great all-around player, great defense, great offense from many different perspectives, and power speed guy. I just like a really great signing for the Rangers, despite what we thought at the very outset of that contract.
Definitely. Another guy, former Athletic, that's going to be in the postseason.
Mm-hmm.
Marcus Semien.
Did you see that tweet?
Yeah, you sent me that tweet.
Did I send it to you?
Yeah, you did. You sent me that tweet. A's on. It was like A's on top or something like that. And it's like every team that's in the postseason has.
No, I tweeted it.
Athletics.
I tweeted it. Said A's run the league.
A's run the same thing, man.
Well, when I tweet something, it goes out to everybody. And when I send something to you, it only goes to you.
Same thing, man. Same thing on Elon's Twitter.com. But yeah, Marcus Semien, really good. Deserves his flowers because it feels like he doesn't get them nearly enough. He's extremely productive in that offense, and it feels like a lot of the credit there goes to the other names and not a whole lot towards Marcus Semien. And it feels like it's been that way. Even when he like put up MVP numbers like the 1 year in like Toronto, it was like, oh, okay. Well, Semien's doing that. All right. And then nobody really kind of gave it a second thought, which sort of sucks. But he's been quietly extremely productive for the last 5-6 years. And we can move on out of our hitter stats and we can go to the pitching side. And there's a couple of Tigers here to talk about. Eduardo Rodriguez, Tariq Skubal, and then another one, Johnny Brito, not a Tiger, with 4 wins. And then on the NL side, also with 4 wins, Michael Wacha, Spencer Strider.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Tigers were surprisingly good in September. Gonna get me all hyped again. Hopefully they can make a couple splashes this offseason because, I mean, that Javi Baez contract is really bad, but the Eduardo Rodriguez contract was not, and he will free up some money this offseason because he's expected to opt out of his contract. And he was really great this season. 3.30 ERA, was worth 3 F4. He only tossed 152 innings pitched because of an injury, but he was really good all season. And Tariq Skubal will get a couple mentions. Johnny Brito was a reliever for the Yankees. He was a bulk reliever, so he was vulturing wins there. And Michael Wacha, I don't think we talked about Michael Wacha at all. He was quietly like really good this year, and
he had that stretch where he was insane for like a month, and then he just kind of went back to being like solid.
Yeah, he had his best season since 2017, according to F4, 2.6 F4 this year. Tossed 134 innings, which is also his most since 2017, 3.22 ERA. He was the best he's been in a long time, in like 6 years. And that's pretty crazy given he's 31 and is just signed a 4-year deal with the Padres, which I did not remember that, but they did just do that. It's because it comes with a lot of player options and club options. It's really confusing, but definitely a very underrated season because the innings weren't there and the strikeouts weren't there, but the results were there for Michael Wacha, and he finished strong.
He sure did. And another one that sort of finished relatively strong was Spencer Strider, who actually set an Atlanta Braves season record
Yeah.
with 277 strikeouts to in the season, which is that's pretty good.
Pretty good.
277 strikeouts. The rest of his stats they're okay. If you look at the surface level stats, finished almost 4 ERA, but as we know, it doesn't tell the whole story. 20 wins also doesn't tell the whole story because they were extremely good. He's had like a weird season. It feels like he's been extremely dominant, and also at the same time, like you could have had more from Spencer Strider.
Oh yeah, I mean the ERA estimators suggest he's the best pitcher in baseball.
Yeah, I think that's probably pretty accurate. I mean, even if you go look at his FIP and xFIP, they're both like sub 3. He's got a 3.86 ERA. He threw 186 innings, got 277 strikeouts. And he's doing it virtually with 2 pitches, sometimes 3. He occasionally throws a changeup, sort of like a DeGrom, just not really using that very, very much. Yeah. The craziest thing with him is he's been bad against teams that are bad. Have you seen that stat? He's gotten shelled by this is an older stat, but it's from the 25th, and this is from Codify. So at the time, his 21 starts versus teams with the winning percentage over 480. He had a 177 average against, 238 on base percentage, giving up a sub 3 slug. So 298 slug. He's got 2.61 ERA. And then 10 starts versus teams with winning percentage under 480. So teams that are extremely bad. 279 average against, 361 on base percentage, slugging almost 500, 485.
Not trying hard enough.
And he's got a 6.93 ERA. It genuinely feels like that. It feels like he's fishing for strikeouts against teams like that, and he's just trying to pad stats against it and see what he can really do. Almost like he's testing himself to see what he can get away with. And he just gets lit up. And it was really cool. I had him in fantasy, and he just
he's like the best pitcher.
Oh, he's great because he'd have a start where he'd get 30 points, and then he'd have a start where he'd get 7 because he'd go 5 innings or 6 innings and give up 9 hits and 4 walks and strike out 10. It's like, what is this guy? And he'd give up 5 runs. He had one start where he went like 2 innings against the Mets, and that was in the middle of the Mets being as bad as they were all season. He gave up 8 runs. He's such a weird pitcher. What a weird season from Spencer Strider.
Yes.
Was it that delayed?
No. I just thought you were going to move on.
Yeah. Yeah, we can move on. We can talk about the saves leaders for all of baseball for the month. We can talk about Clay Holmes and Emmanuel Clase, who both tied for the AL lead with 8. And then Yinzer Supreme, David Bednar, closed out the season with a save to move into the lead with 10.
Yeah, and Emmanuel Clase led baseball in saves on the year, despite having probably the worst year of his career. 3.22 ERA doesn't sound terrible, but this is supposed to be the best reliever in baseball. His strikeout rate fell significantly as well, down to 21.2%, a career low there. Definitely not the best season for him, but doesn't matter. Still got 44 saves. That's what gets him paid. David Bednar, though, he was pretty interesting because he led baseball in saves in the second half with, I think it was 22, and that allowed him to save 39 on the year. And I think that tied for the National League lead with Camilo Doval. Incredible season from David Bednar. He'll still be around for 3 more seasons in Pittsburgh. I think it's going to be perfect timing too, because I think the Pirates are just now starting to get good. I think they're 2 years away from being the Orioles, being that like big, exciting team with a bunch of young players, finally reaching the upper echelon of baseball teams. And I think David Bednar is going to lead the way.
Yeah, he actually had the highest save percentage of any closing pitcher in all of baseball, which is really good. I think he converted 39 of 42 chances. I think he only had 2 or 3 blown saves. If we want to talk the opposite, talk about Emmanuel Clase, because he's the only closing pitcher ever to have 40 plus saves in the same season, that he also blew 12 or more saves. So
That's wild.
It's so crazy.
That's crazy.
Yeah, what a
It really
year.
felt like that. It really felt like that because I had him on my fantasy team, and it was just like he comes through all the time, and then he would also just screw me all the time. So it was just such like a mix of emotions.
Definitely. Yeah, weird season. And then we talk about Clay Holmes. I feel like Clay Holmes has gotten disrespected a little bit by Yankees fans as well, because he's been really good even in a year where none of their team has been very good. And Yankees fans are very apt to point fingers whenever they literally can. And Clay Holmes has been very, very good in that bullpen.
Yeah.
We can move on also and talk about a couple guys that we've already talked about, and one I feel like we have not stopped talking about for this entire second half. And that is the ERA leaders for the month. And on the AL side, it's Tariq Skubal, 0.90. And then NL Cy Young winner, Blake Snell, 0.58 ERA.
Did he pitch on the final day of the season? No, he was scheduled to.
I think he
he was scheduled to, and they didn't do it.
Yeah, he threw. Well, his last start, he went like almost 130 pitches.
What?
Yeah, you didn't see that? He threw 120. He threw 100. Blake Snell. He threw 127 pitches in his last start.
One sec. 120.
120. I think I saw something that was 127.
What the hell?
Yeah, they never let him.
He threw 100 pitches in his last start. You are tripping.
But I saw the graphic and said he threw 127.
Maybe he threw 127 innings this year. No, I'm joking. He threw 180 innings this year, which is 2 outs less than the amount of innings he pitched in his Cy Young winning 2018 season. But he really capped off what is bound to be a Cy Young season for him. He will join a very short list of players to have won it in both leagues. 2.25 ERA this year. Big strikeout guy, the biggest walk guy in baseball, 13%, 31.5% strikeout rate. Really, really great season from Blake Snell. And it was the run that he went on after, like, from May 25th on. He had a 6-run blow up on May 19th. And then from then on, he took his game to just an absolutely unprecedented level. I'm getting you all the stats here so I can read them off, because it was crazy what he did, because it does obviously include that September. He tossed 135 innings. So this was like most of his season. This is everything, not including 45 innings of his season. He struck out 186 batters during that time in a percentage rate. That's 34.4%. That's really incredible for a starter. And he also pitched to a 1.20 ERA. This was across 23 starts. He had a 1.20 ERA. Absolutely bonkers what he was doing. And I think the craziest part is it came with a 1.07 whip, which not usually indicative of an ERA that low. And that was because he had a 13.3% walk rate, which I guess that worked for him, because he still had a strikeout minus walk percentage in the elite territory of 21%. Just an incredible run, 1.20 ERA across 23 starts. That's an all-time run there for Blake Snell.
Definitely. Where do you think his season ranks in terms of contract years in all of baseball history? Because it's not better than Judge's. I don't.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
But it's got to be up there.
In terms of pitchers. In terms of pitchers, my memory doesn't suit me well enough to be able to like go back and remember all the pitchers that had good seasons right before they hit free agency. But the one that comes to mind,
crazy year.
Sure, the one for me that comes to mind is Robbie Ray, just a couple years ago, because he was also coming off a Cy Young season in a different fashion than Snell, but still pretty similar. Snell, I think, has had more success throughout his career, but he hasn't eaten the innings that Robbie Ray has. So I think that's very comparable. Just winning the Cy Young before becoming a free agent, I think, is huge. We just saw Verlander do that as well. So I think that's somewhat of a common theme of just like seeing these guys
Yeah.
win Cy Young right before they hit free agency. But Snell having one of the best Cy Young seasons, I think, is pretty interesting. I think it probably wouldn't rate among the best because if you're just rating Cy Young seasons, I don't think he stacks up among the rest
Yeah.
just because he
This is kind of
didn't.
a weak Cy Young.
It's a
year.
weird season, but it's because it's the innings aren't there. Like if he was like a 200 inning guy, I know that's a 20 inning difference, but if he was a 200 inning guy with a low twos ERA and a strikeout rate of like 34%, I think there's a bit difference there, but I think you do have to discount him on the whip and the walks as well, but still like an incredible season. And he's about to get paid by a team that I am gonna guess is gonna be pretty disappointed with what they get.
Yeah, he kind of feels like a team that sort of just missed it would be in on him. I think it's funny you talked about Robbie Ray.
On the Rays.
Maybe back on the Rays. I think one that honestly makes a little bit of sense would be the Mariners because he's from
They
Seattle.
got so much pitching.
He's from Seattle, and they can trade.
They have so much pitching.
Yeah, Jake. They can trade the pitching depth for guys that can hit a baseball, not like Teoscar
maybe
Hernandez
they just sign a guy
Jared
who can
Kelnick.
hit the baseball.
I don't know. I like that fit personally.
I think
he'll end up on the Dodgers or something.
I think the Giants will sign him, and I'm gonna be pissed.
He'll never walk anybody ever again.
Yeah.
Or they'll use him as bulk reliever. It's going to be one of the
they will use him. They'll sign him to like a 6-year, $230 million contract.
He'll be a bulk reliever. He'll be a bulk reliever by June.
Yeah. Their signings were so bad this season. Like Mitch Haniger sucked. Michael Conforto. Remember how like
Mitch Haniger broke his nutsack.
Yeah. Remember how much people were freaking out over Michael Conforto sucking in 2021?
Yeah.
He was worse.
Nice.
He was worse this year than that. And then their starters, I mean, Sean Manaea tossed like 115 innings, and while he was not bad, yep. Ross Stripling tossed like 87, had like the worst inning year of his career. And Taylor Rogers was solid, but like that's our third best reliever. It's like, oh wow. I'm so glad we didn't get Aaron Judge. We get all these other guys.
Signed him for all that money to be worse than his brothers.
Hey, at least we got Arson Judge.
Yeah, Arson Judge, they'll go. They had Carlos Correa for 45 minutes also. Don't forget about that.
That was cool. That guy sucks too.
Yeah, that guy does suck. Imagine if they just signed him to that gigantic deal and he sucked too. Anyway, we've talked about the ERA leaders. We're just going to repeat the same two guys. Whip leaders, same thing. Tariq Skubal, 0.60. All baseball and whip, and that's sort of because Blake Snell walks literally everybody on the planet. Whip, 0.87 for Blake Snell. Do we need to add much more for them?
Skubal is crazy. I don't know if you saw what he did. He tossed just 80 innings this year, made just 15 starts because he was coming off like flexor tendon surgery or some shit. 2.80. Like last year, it felt like was his breakout because he was like one of the top young pitching prospects. He did get injured after 21 innings, but he had a 3.52 ERA last year. This year, 2.80, like big step up there. But the craziest part were the strikeouts going way up to 33% after being like a 25% guy for his career, and the walks going down. So he had just an insane strikeout minus walk rate. This guy was like a top 10 to 15 pitcher down the stretch, throughout the whole second half. And this is going to be one of the most exciting pitchers to draft this offseason because I don't know if the innings are going to be there, but I think he is really legit. He even increased his fastball velocity as well. He is super exciting and he's going to be a fun pitcher to draft, but he's going to go way more expensively than I think most people expect. I think the casuals, they'll go into drafts and they'll see like Tariq Skubal go off like 12 off the board and they'll be like, what the hell? Like, why are they drafting this guy so early? Who even is this Tariq Skubal? And then they'll learn when he like wins the Cy Young. But yeah, I think he and Cole Reagans are going to be like the two like guys that really bumped up their stock in the second half. Reese Olson.
Yeah, Reese Olson. Have you not seen Reese Olson's second half?
I know who Reese Olson is. 3.9. Okay, let's see. Second half. Second half, 3.97 ERA.
Yeah, but the strikeouts were crazy too. Like they've actually fixed sort of their rotation issues. Like
24% strikeout rate. It was worse than the first half.
Yeah, but he's been really good for them. Like they went from having They went from having nobody and sort of relying like, oh, Casey Mize is a future
His
rotation.
September
And
was really good.
yeah, it was. But
From
like
August
still,
28th through September 26th, he had a 1.51 ERA
that's what I'm
and
saying.
strikeout per inning just about.
That's what I'm saying. Have you seen the whiff rate on Tariq Skubbal's changeup?
It's the best in baseball.
Yeah, it's 51%.
Yep.
Stupid.
That means on more than half of the swings against Tarek Skubal, batters are missing.
It's outrageous.
Wicked.
All right.
Strikeouts.
Tampa Bay Ray and a former Tampa Bay Ray. On the AL side, leading all of baseball. Tyler Glasnow, Killian Murphy's doppelganger. And on the NL side, Blake Snell. Name sounds kind of familiar.
He really doesn't look like Cillian Murphy after he cut his hair. Killian Murphy just sort of just looks. It's Killian, isn't it? Or I don't know.
It's Killian. It's Killian.
I don't know what it is.
They look alike. They look a whole lot alike.
Sure. And then the freaking Codify always posting the AI altered image.
Oh yeah.
That just with his face on it. Anyway, Tyler Glasnow, first year back. I think it was Tommy John surgery. He missed a lot of time. He set a career high in innings this year, 120. Wow. That's so many innings. He had a pretty solid year, 3.53 ERA, but I think it could have been better. His xFIP suggests that 2.75 xFIP, 0.75 runs lower. I think definitely should have been better, but still FIP counts for F4. And so he had his best season by F4. He was a 33% strikeout rate guy on the season. I don't know how anybody hits him. The guy throws 97 miles per hour and then just has a hammer curve and a slider. He's just always really good and he's sexy. So, that's why he's so good.
Jared Carrabis has that gigantic crush on him.
He does have a really big crush on him.
Yeah, fair enough though. Dude's 9 feet tall. He's got the majestic flow.
I don't date guys below 6'5".
Yeah, for real. F4 leaders.
Yep.
Garrett Cole, 1.7.
Yep.
NL, Blake Snell, whatever, 1.3.
Garrett Cole was definitely
really
one of the best pitchers in baseball this year. Really, really crazy what he did. In some cases, I think B-War suggests that he was even better than he was back in 2019 when he struck out 300 batters. But I think the coolest part of his season, right when things really got tough towards the end, Yankees weren't playing for anything. He was playing for a Cy Young. His second to last start, 8 innings, 2 hits, 1 earned, no walks, 9 Ks. And then he finished it off with a complete game shutout, allowing just 2 hits. I mean, that's the way to cap it off. I mean, if you want people to remember what it was like to watch you when they're voting, that's the way to do it. Complete game shutout to end the year. How many shutouts were there this year? I'm guessing 4.
I don't know.
I'm pulling it up.
Stats leaders.
Oh, they don't have it. They don't even have complete games. Oh, they do have complete games. They have. Oh, there were a lot of guys with complete games, but who threw shutouts? I don't freaking know. Definitely not Jordan Lyles. Why do they have complete games and not shutouts? That's freaking annoying. Is there a shutout number on Fangraphs? There is. All right, give me a sec. Give me 1 second. But I don't know. What did you think about him finishing off the season in that style?
God, it just really fits the Yankees, doesn't it? It's he's just been the only player. Him and Judge has been hurt. He's been carrying their offense. Garrett Cole has been the one really good starter for them after they just slag him off for 4 straight years. It's oh, Garrett Cole's not that good. He sucks. It's here you go. The one year that everything is bad, the rest of the Yankees probably win the Cy Young. Go figure. Yeah.
There were 21 shutouts this year. Garrett Cole, that was his second of the year, and it tied Framber Valdez for the most in baseball. Both of them had 2. And there were 17 other guys that had 1. I think the most surprising name on the list, Johan Oviedo, threw a complete game shutout. Do you know what team he's on?
Yeah, he's on the Pirates.
That's right. Ball.
I do know ball. I've streamed him on multiple occasions.
Nice. Yeah, that's wild. Great season from Garrett Cole.
And Domingo Germán had the 1 shutout.
I don't even want to think about that.
Yeah.
Perfect game.
Hey.
Yeah, we'll have to do best moments of the season, but we'll probably wait until after the postseason to do like a full season wrap because we'll get wrapped up in in all the postseason that's coming. But the monthly awards have yet to come out, which is really disappointing because I know they're going to come out like tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
And but
Definitely.
we will be at work while the playoff games are being played. So I thought we might as well talk about them while we still could. But we can do quick predictions for the monthly awards. Who do you got for player of the month in the American League?
Player of the month for the American League. I don't know. Feels like Marcus Semien, probably.
Agreed. What about in the National League?
Xander Bogaerts.
I'm going Ronald. I just think that
probably. Yeah, I guess Ronald, but I'll go Xander Bogaerts. He had a really, really crazy month.
He really did. And then in pitchers of the month, who you got in the AL?
Garrett Cole.
I think it's going to be Skubal.
Well, yeah, Skubal's a good one.
Garrett Cole is really good, but Skubal, I think, led in both ERA and WHIP, and I think that should do it in the National League. Who you got?
Probably Blake Snell.
Agreed. And now for rookies of the month, this one's harder because hard to see all the league leaders and split them out. Who do you got in the American League?
Logan O'Hoppe.
I think that's a good call. I was originally going to say Gunnar Henderson, but I think O'Hoppe's 9 home runs that's pretty crazy. But so did Nelson Velasquez. I'll say O'Hoppe. That's more fun. And National League, who do you got?
National League Rookie of the Month. God, honestly, would need to look at it again, but I think I'm just going to go probably the easy way out and say Corbin Carroll.
All right, me too. And then we can close it out. Pun intended. With relievers of the month, who you got in the AL?
David Bednar is going to win it twice. He's going to win it for both leagues. Let's go Clay Holmes. I like Clay Holmes. And then NL, David Bednar.
I feel like it's going to be somebody that didn't get the most saves in the month. It's probably going to be somebody like freaking Yohan Duran or something. Pete Fairbanks. I'll say I don't even have the stats. So I don't even have the stats to back this up. I'll just say Yohan Duran because he's the man. But yeah, that's the September month in review. I'd like to close things out. I don't have a closer today, so we'll just have to go cold turkey here to close things out. But any like last stats, any fun tweets that you saw this week to close things out from the final week?
No, I was looking at stats for to support my Clay Holmes choice. He had a .75 ERA against, and he had 11 strikeouts. So a couple saves thrown in there. Decent.
Well, I do have a couple, and I think the most notable one is Luis Arraez winning the National League batting title this year. Not only is he on a short list of players to have won the batting title in both leagues, but he became the first player ever to win consecutive batting titles in both leagues. I thought that was pretty cool. Last year, he batted .316 with the Twins. This year, .354 with the Marlins.
That is really cool. I didn't even know that has basically been like the first time ever.
Yeah. I saw the tweet yesterday, but yeah, pretty crazy what he was able to do. I remember when we thought he was going to bat 400 and he didn't even come close.
Yeah. It kind of sucked because I was really hoping that somebody would at least make it a race. Like we've talked about some names that like have had no real chance for it. Do you remember when we were talking about like Charlie Blackmon was chasing it in like June and he was hitting like 380.
Was that last year?
That was like, I think that might have been either last year or 2 years ago.
We weren't recording 2 years ago.
Yeah, we were.
No.
I feel like that's cap. But
well, like when I say last year,
we've gone through 2 full seasons.
Yes. When I say last year and you're talking about June, it means like last 2022 June.
When did he do that then? What am I thinking of?
Because he sucked to start this year.
Well, yeah, because he does suck, but like,
whoa,
he does. Jake, it's our favorite team. We can talk bad about our favorite team.
Sure.
Yeah, he really shit the bed. Luis Ariz shit the bed also.
Mm-hmm.
Don't give that guy the batting title just because he blew it. Well, we've done our month interview, and the season is over. And I think
I got
that
more.
a good way to end it also is by putting my favorite meme in the entire world on screen.
All right. I got a couple more stats. We'll get there. MLB umpires missed over 21,000 balls and strikes calls during the 2023 regular season.
God.
That's a record for the fewest.
Hey. Nice.
Right?
That's pretty good.
My favorite stat of the day was Britt Giroli at Britt_Giroli, GHIROLI. She said that MLB announced attendance over 70 million this year. That is a 9.6% increase from last year, which is the biggest year-to-year increase in the last 30 years. That's awesome. And I think it's a direct result of the rule changes, because not only did it make the game more exciting in some ways with the stolen bases and maybe easier to understand with the lack of shifting, but it also made it a more consumable product because you knew how long you were going to be at the ballpark. And while for some people it sucks that you can't buy $12 beers for 4 hours, I think it's for families, it's a lot easier to go to a game when you know the limitations are 2 to 3 hours always, and usually exactly on the 2:30 mark. And I thought that was really cool. I went to, I think, 3 or 4 games this season, and I think all of them were at like 2:30 to 2:45 in terms of time elapsed. And I thought that was great, and it makes it a lot easier to consume the games. And I think even more people will get to see how much easier it is to watch a baseball game now because of the pace picking up. Once we get into the postseason, I know we'll see a few pitch clock violations, and some people are going to lose their minds and some people are going to be really confused. But I really think the Rob Manfred era has actually been a success, no matter how much that guy sucks whenever he gets on a podium.
Yeah.
And the way that
if he just never had to speak, he'd be great.
Yeah, honestly, he like the rules that he's implemented over the last few years, very controversial. But I think he's doing a great job. I think the product this year was really incredible. I wish I got to watch more of it. But I think the regular season's just for stats and fantasy baseball. The postseason is for watching.
That's right. I think I don't really have any cool stats to add, but I do have some cool potential news to add. And it's that Jeremy Filosa, who's a Montreal-based sports reporter, spoke to a bunch of people off the record in MLB, and he reported it. Not cool. But he said people at the highest
Well, you can
levels,
talk to people off the record and report it without naming them.
He didn't name him. But he said that people at the highest levels of Major League Baseball have continued interest in expanding to 32 teams. And one of those teams would be the return of the Montreal Expos.
And it would be cool to have the other team be?
The Oakland Athletics.
Yes. Did you see that report like a month or so ago, where somebody was just like, if the league were to expand, the A's, like Oakland would be one of the top spots?
Well, it would
which is so goofy.
The thing with that is there's a huge parallel to be drawn to the Cleveland Browns, because if they were to move
football team?
Yeah. So the Browns got moved way back in the day in the 90s. Yeah, in the world. But they got moved back in the day in the 90s to Baltimore, and the old Cleveland Browns were the Baltimore Ravens. And when the Browns just didn't have a team for like 3 years, and they just expanded and they just put a team in Cleveland and just decided to call them the Browns again. So they just like put the team back. So I feel like the Athletics could
That's so confusing when it comes to like franchises. MLB did that too with the frickin' Braves.
Yeah. But like it makes sense to just be like, okay, if we're going to expand, and they said that the expansion process could begin in potentially 12 to 18 months. There's a bunch of teams that have like in cities that have a chance at it. I think like Oakland, obviously they should keep their team. If they wanted to put one in Montreal, I think another one that's like a kind of an outside chance would either be Charlotte or Raleigh, which would be really cool for me.
For you, did you see any games this year?
I didn't get to, because like I'm in such a weird market where it's like I either have to go to Washington or I think the only other close place that I have to go is either Cleveland or Atlanta. So like I'm in like a weird dead zone where the quickest drive for me to go see a game is about 5 to 6 hours. And then that's also got to get through DC traffic. And then that's still to watch the Nationals, who are terrible and I don't want to watch and are owned by a bunch of idiots. So like, I don't really want to watch that. Give us a team that's closer, if anything. But I would also be thrilled with the return of the Expos. I think that'd be great. I went to Montreal over the summer, and that city is still just completely like rife with baseball culture. Everywhere you go, you see murals still of Andre Dawson, Gary Carter, so like that. I think it'd be really cool to have a team there. And then the thing with Oakland, they should never leave the Athletic. Like the Athletic should never leave.
We didn't really cover it, and I didn't put it on the rundown. But while we're here, just covering last things, there were a few managers fired. For me, most notably, Gabe Kapler of the Giants, but also we saw Buck Showalter go, and who was the other guy? There were three. Am I tripping?
Google time.
Am I tripping?
No, I swear another one got fired.
We know Aaron Boone's returning.
Oh God.
Dodgers, Diamondbacks, Padres, Giants, Rockies, Braves, Phillies, Mets, Nationals, Reds, Pirates, Cardinals.
Phil Nevin didn't get fired, did he?
Oh, he did. Yeah, he did.
Yeah, there you go.
That was today.
Yeah,
there
Phil
you
Nevin
go. Yeah, so those are some big ones. I think pretty notable.
Buck Showalter said he's not coming back. They basically probably just told him like, you either need to resign or we're firing you.
Yeah, well, I mean that's fair. I think that we know who's going there. I think it's going to be Craig Counsell, and while Showalter probably wasn't bad, you really can't blame him for their underperformance this year because they were really good last year. So and they had Buck Showalter, so it's not like it was his fault. But yeah, that sort of sucks that he's gone. I think one of the better managers of the past 20 years in Showalter. But yeah, I think Craig Counsell's going to replace him. You got David Stearns coming over from Milwaukee to take over GM baseball operations there in Queens. And so I think he'll probably bring Craig Counsell with him. And to me, that's an upgrade. I think Craig Counsell is one of the better managers in baseball.
I do too. I think another one that is really worth watching, depending on what it looks like. I think AJ Hinch is probably a decent one for a couple of these little openings. And then,
is he a free agent?
I don't know, but I feel like they would probably be able to move. I don't remember, to be honest, but I feel like whoever takes the Angels job is more power to you, big dog.
I don't really see the point of even like doing anything crazy there. I mean, usually you just want to, I think just like give an opportunity to a guy that's like, I don't know, trying to like find a job. Guy. Yeah, or hire internally, like give somebody a chance, because I mean it's really not going to matter. They're going to suck for the next like 7 years, probably the rest of the decade. And you know that it really sucks for them. And I've never like been an anti-Angels guy, despite being an A's fan my whole life. But yeah, I mean that's sort of expected. I really thought that Nevin was not good there the whole time. But I think the Giants one is the most surprising because they are not a team that is built to like be a juggernaut. And then, so like when they play 500, you're not like, oh my God, how could they be so bad? It's all the manager's fault. He really undermanaged this team. And while he's been a 500 manager his whole career, except for the 1 year in 2021, when the Giants set a franchise record, I think the fact that he did that should keep him his job. But anyway, there's like a clear explanation here, and it's just that the front office has sort of sucked, and they are managed by the upper management who hired them, and they were just like, hey, you got to blame this on someone. And that's a lot of time what a manager's there for, just to be the face of the team, the one who can be blamed when things go awry. And the Giants missing out on the postseason back-to-back seasons. You sort of just have to blame somebody, and while that should be the upper management, because they're the ones who hire the front office, and in a lot of like new age organizations like the Giants, the manager is not the one making the calls. It's the front office. They make all the plans, they make all the calls, and that's they should be the ones to blame, not the manager. But Gabe Kapler will be out. I do think that he could get another opportunity somewhere else. Maybe it's with the Angels. But I think he's a very solid manager. I think he was a good people manager, and he followed the front office's game plan. But he's definitely sort of a scapegoat here, and I'm sort of excited to see who the Giants go for. Sucks that Bruce Bochy isn't available, but
it's almost.
I'm sure they'll go with another analytics guy.
It's gonna be Joe Madden.
Oh, Joe Madden, that would be fun. I might be down for that.
Yeah, I feel like that one's a Joe Madden job. Oh God, the tweet was so funny. The way Basson worded it.
What?
Like, the way Gabe Kapler is out as San Francisco manager.
He's gay?
Everyone was goofing on that. Yeah, that was a funny one. Anyway, anything else you want to add? Yeah, that thing. That's my favorite.
We did it. It survived the whole year. What a crazy year.
Cardinals suck.
If only the Dodgers could just finish last place.
That would be cool.
Cool.
I mean, the Dodgers, imagine if they had hired Gabe Kapler over Dave Roberts back in the day.
They'd probably be better. Poor Dave Roberts. His team sucks.
Yeah, poor Dave Roberts. His team sucks. I can't wait for the Dodgers to blow up in the playoffs. Just like
me too. That's my favorite part of every year.
I love that gift so much. Poor Dave
All
Roberts.
right.
Anyway, that's it. No more podcasts.
No more podcasts. That's the whole season. Never again.
Season's over. No more podcasts. If you would like to follow us on Twitter, you can do so at DVS Bird. That's me, and Jake Crumpler is him. You should go to his page, and you should read all of his stuff that he writes for the multitude of sites like
the pitcherlist.com and baseballhq.com. Both great websites. Pitcherlist completely free. Baseball HQ's got a paywall. Both of them have incredible content that you can't really find anywhere else. This off season, I will still be writing a couple articles a month for Pitcherlist and doing stuff behind the scenes for Baseball HQ. Definitely get the Baseball HQ forecaster, which will come out sometime this winter. I am contributing to that, not in the way that you'll be able to tell, but in the playing time analysis part. But over at Pitcherlist, a couple articles a month, one or two, couple podcasts a month, just the In the Pen podcast now. I'm all done with the First Pitch podcast now. What a year that was. But yeah, it's been a really incredible season. And thanks to everyone who supported me and who supported our podcast. I think we're on the verge of bigger and better things. I thought it was a great season. We really didn't miss too many podcasts. But you can find all of my work at crumplerbaseball.com.
Yeah, you sure can. This was a wonderful season of baseball, and I'm glad we got to do the podcast for it. And we'll still do stuff for the postseason until it ends. Obviously, if you want to go check out the site that hosts us, also follow them on Twitter at AthletesHub and go to the website and read their articles too. They're really easy, digestible reads. Pretty fun stuff to read over there. All sorts of stuff, especially since basketball season is about to start. Our other podcasts, well, we're not on it, but the other podcast that the site runs, Deep Takes from Three, will start back up.
You think so?
As well, I think so. They usually stay on top of that one pretty well.
I remember when I was like tracking whether or not we would catch them in podcasts. I think we might have double now.
Probably, but like their schedules are weird. And basketball is like they would cover it like at a certain like percentage of time because it's difficult to be like, oh, what's the happenings from like a whole week of basketball. It's like sort of similar. It's like I don't know. It's kind of a weird season to cover. But yeah, we're excited to do the postseason and excited to continue this podcast. But for now, that's all we got. Peace.